Well, welcome, and first of all, thanks to Sadie for engineering this, really, and the gallery, as well as Wilhelm's show, which I saw yesterday. And my first thought was, how can someone paint so many different things on different scales, in different ways, from one year to the other? Because all these works, I think, are this year and last year.
This is not something I really think much about. That's the way it happens, because my inspirations come from different sources, different images. What is common in all these paintings that they were all made in the new studio I moved a year ago. But when you asked me that so many different paintings, I've been always greedy and wanted to possess as much as possible. Somehow to take over as many, I don't want to use this word styles, but possibilities of painting as possible. So probably that's the answer. And I remember when I was a student that's been something as sort of licencia poetica on certain way of resolving problems. And of course I wanted to get as much as possible.
Okay, because you seem to approach all the genre, you know, still life, portraiture, history painting. It's as if there is nothing that you won't paint, or is there a degree of censorship or of?
Yes, there is. There is. So there are certain subjects that I haven't touched because I think they are too delicate, too vulnerable, maybe I'm too close to them. But basically, everything is to paint. There is no such subject that cannot be painted. Yeah.
Okay, so from George and Paul, the Beatles, to Rohingya. Is it the Beatles on Tuesday and
Beatles on Tuesday, yeah, and Rohingya on Wednesday. I mean that can be. But also I was wondering if I can paint a Rohingya escaping genocide. This is so delicate, and nowadays subject. Of course, they are the victims who suffers. And I was thinking about it. How do I approach the subject? If I can do that, and of course I'm not innocent, but this story is enough distant to me that I allowed to myself to do that. By the way, I found a photograph on Guardian, and what puzzled me was this blanket, this colorful blanket.
the one slung between the?
Yes.
It's that weight, isn't it?
Yes, that must be just possession of probably everything they have. These two guys who carry it, and I thought that that's already there that's dangerous. That's really on the verge. That to use that image with this colorful blanket, and I thought, okay, when I paint it, I'm also involved in it. I'm not innocent, and even can be accused of cynicism using it. At least, maybe not cynicism, but of course, that would be stupid to say that I somehow emphasize the subject. This is not. I'm not that naive, and so that was probably if something like that would happen next. I mean, in the in a close distance. I wouldn't do that, but since it's on the other...
Like if it was in Belarus or in Poland?
Yes,
or
probably yes. I wouldn't touch it. So when you ask me when you ask me about censorship, yeah, the other subject the other subject, of course, from Second World War that I wouldn't paint because I think maybe that would be too vulgar. But not with this one, maybe because I found this image.
Okay, but you have painted Hitler.
Yes, I did, and it was very interesting. That I was thinking again about this painting because in the last part of My Struggle by Karl Ove Knausgaard, there is the big part of this book, the sixth part about Hitler, and you read it not as an evil man, just a regular man who happened to be evil.
Who happened to be Hitler.
Who happened to be Hitler, yeah.
I mean, I like the idea of bringing Knausgaard in because again, you feel that he can focus on the minutiae of his life, on the smallest detail, of taking the kids to kindergarten, or finding an hour when he can write, or football, or it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you go with the most quotidian and everyday. And does that happen when you're, I mean, I get a sense it happens when you're painting.
Yes, it happens. And this is also, there's certain mode I can switch on. I can imagine I could paint the painting from this meeting. So this is everything is to paint.
It's all available.
It's all available. Yeah.
Sure. And then we have, inescapably, La Danse behind us, and facing and looking at, perhaps, the Matisse from the other end of the room is the father of the atom bomb. Is he the comfortable man in the armchair? I thought to myself, you know.
Yeah. That's what I would like to explain. That this is the selection because all the subjects, the selection's been done by Sadie and by me, and that was weird juxtaposition for me. I mean, just putting these two paintings in one exhibition, but yes, but that's what's interesting for me.
Yeah, sure. And Teller was the. Did he not go and work for Rockefeller, or was that?
No,
that was Liechtenstein, the guy.
Yes, Levi Strauss. That's the entrepreneur, American entrepreneur who was involved in development of hydrogen bomb. Because Oppenheimer refused, so they have to bring a stronger one.
What led you to these particular characters?
This is by chance. I once in the hotel I switched on TV and I watched the documentary on them. But I was always this threat was always there in Poland, and I was for me each news about how we are exposed, how little is needed to push the button, always makes me insecure. That was the real threat in Poland. So maybe that's something that brings back this feeling.
Sure. So we need Matisse in a way. He's part of your experience as much as anything else in your life, isn't he? I mean, so.
Yes, what I always liked this painting, the Matisse painting, the dance, because I didn't like it. That was the moment in my life that I couldn't grasp the idea behind Matisse, but now I like him very much, and so this is sort of a tribute. But also this is a very practical reason why I painted it. I wanted to paint the biggest painting I can put in my studio that go through the door.
Okay.
So that's why it can be in the full size, the 40 centimeters right.
Which is why it fades out?
Yes, it's fade out.
And the way you faded it out is quite particular. You didn't just let it wander off, really. It's like a vertical blind or something.
Yes, I was thinking about how to do that, and because I use spray, and it was very technically painted. I wanted to make sort of a copy, dry, distant copy of the dance. I thought maybe using the spray will be continuity of this approach. So that's why I paint sort of shutters.
Yeah, yeah. Or as if it's being turned down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But actually, when you go into that green, you've painted it in a very Matissean kind of way. You know, there's a little freshness to the brush strokes. It sings.
Yes, I think this is also because of the studio. This is I wouldn't dare before to use such color, and with paint it with such ease. That was not enough. So probably not enough was the strict copy of the painting. So that's why I painted this fade out.
Sure. And in La Danse, the music.
Yeah.
Round the corner, you've got this sprayed over rope motif. What's that about?
That's about music, about sound, but it just happened that I had this piece of rope. I have a swing in my studio for my daughter, and I had to exchange it, so I've got some leftover of the rope. So I decided to use it. And I like also rope very much as a material because it's been very popular, and it's been, of course, it's an old school natural material that's been used in the 60s.
Arte povera.
Arte povera, yeah. but in Poland, there were the artists who, female artists who did a lot of this fabric texture, fabric art pieces. That was quite common and became very old-fashioned. So I like it very much.
For that reason.
Yes,
like with the macrame over there.
Yes, macrame is the example.
Which is a hybrid between a painting and a real. Is it related to a particular kind of folk tradition, or?
Yes, I think that there's quite strong tradition in Poland of such art, and there was the chain of the stores in the communist times. It's called Cepelia, and it was folk art. So you could buy this folk art, something between folk and contemporary. That was a weird combination. So anyway, I remember from my parents' apartment these pieces, and And of course, sometimes I like these awkward references. I mean, awkward because this is so old school, so uncool.
And when you get close to it, it's kind of nasty.
It can be nasty. It's
kind of that black.
Yeah. And this is pretty much about music. I also, because I listen. I was thinking about metal music, like this. Nasty one. Okay.
And then you've got the guy, the guitarist from Spaceman 3, who then went to work or did an album with Yola Tango. And so they're both here as well. And is all that blue? Is that music?
That's Yola Tango. Yes, it's meant to be music. It's meant to be music. It's meant to be something, some sound that is floating.
And the Mesuin's call in the
yes.
In the mosque.
So it's with Mesuin call. Yeah.
So you're painting things that can't be seen, really.
Not really. That's not. this is always the task for kids at the school, that you have to listen to this music and paint abstract. No, this is not that easy. But I influence. Yes, sometimes the sound can be reason to paint.
Sure.
So sometimes it happened to me that I try to grasp sound.
Yeah. And are you listening to music while you paint?
Yes, I do listen. I do listen to music and to audiobooks.
Don't you get lost listening to the...
No, that's very interesting. I can't, for instance, that's very interesting because like this difficult book, like, I don't know, In the Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust. I can't listen to it when I drive. But
you fall asleep or something? Or you...
No, not really. But I have to. But because I think it's quite subtle. You have to really even focus on it. So
sure.
What I can during while I paint.
Okay, as it gets you into the zone.
I think so. Yeah.
Does that mean not being self-conscious?
That's interesting. I try to be conscious. I try to know. This is not something. I don't want to control everything. I let the painting to be painted by itself. But what's crucial, the final decision, that's what I make.
Sure.
That the painting is done. But yes, it's not that I can't, I have to work in, if not sound, if not the audiobook, I need a quite clean space. This is not that yes.
And so all the mess is in the painting, not in the space?
Excuse me?
All the mess is,
yes,
is in the painting?
Yes.
I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that there is...
Yes. But you know, all the nastiness, all the dirt, and this is, yes.
Because sometimes you paint as if you don't like the material, as if you have an ambivalent, at best, relationship to it.
That's right. Maybe because I also that's also sort of maybe not a trauma, but I don't have really good memories about. I don't think. Yes, this is probably because of the school, because of Academy of Fine Arts. It is always the one that I attended to was conservative, and so I didn't want to paint. I rather wanted to draw with paint, with oil colors, and it took me a while to get used to it, that I'm a painter and I can use this. So that I believe I can use them in a perverse way.
Okay, so it's not a celebration. It's not a kind of celebration of the medium.
No,
it's a more critical activity altogether.
Yes, but I can celebrate as well. I hope.
And that kind of shows quite often in the work, you know, in a certain kind of scuffing or stuttering, a kind of, you're very aware of, the viewer is very aware of how things are constructed, or perhaps the order in which things were put down, or the use of the whiteness and as a positive as well as a negative, and you seem to know when to stop, or there's a degree at which the painting is on the verge of a kind of virtuoso.
Yes,
and you pull
exactly.
back.
Exactly. This is yes, exactly. This is the verge. This is, I think, this is the word that if I'm just one little step and I fall down. That's the point. And but on the other hand, I can't accept now. It's changed over the last years that I can't accept paintings somehow that are not um, that they don't have signs of struggle, maybe.
That they should have.
They should have, yes. They should have. This is something I also believe in the labor, in
labor.
work, in labor, yes. That's maybe for me. That's for me. It's a part of being a painter.
And do you feel that when you listen to the music you like, or read the book? Do you like to see these, or sense these feelings of difficulty?
What do you mean?
Well, you say that you know there are signs of struggle somehow, and
No.
surely part of the job is to get rid of that.
No. This is not part of this. No, that's a struggle with the materials. That colors that they don't listen to me. That the way I put the paint on the surface is not that I would like to. No, this is the only difficulty.
Okay. It made me think of the painting Sleep, which is over there, which is a still from one of your films it's based on.
Yes.
And it's a face asleep. And the closer, I was looking at this yesterday, and the closer I got to it, the less certain I was of this thing, which is of course the nose and the way it attached to the head. And it made me feel that sensation one has when you're falling asleep and your kind of body image kind of shifts around. I don't know if you intended that or it was just a consequence of...
Not really, no. That was, for me, honestly, that was surprise. I didn't... Because I rarely assume that paintings should look this or that way. I have print out all the drawing and then I try to do something with it. And because of the scale of the painting, because of the close-up.
And it's sort of 35 millimeter filmic.
Yes. This is 16 by 9. I've realized I can do that nearly in this photography, in this photo reality. So that's why it's that. But because I was a cameraman, so that was just transition of my what I've seen through viewfinder long time ago.
When did you make the film?
I think it was then maybe 8 years ago.
Okay.
9 years ago.
But you're just using it as material now?
Yes. Yeah. I can do that. This is. I like this hybrid possibilities.
Do you ever wonder, should this be a painting or should it be a film or should it be another?
No, for me these are two different activities. This is not. Now I'm totally into comic book. That I've started almost 2 years ago, and since it's been only a script that I was working, and I was so these are these different fields that if I'm in this field, I'm totally devoted to that, and there's no.
So comic books are the next thing, or they're? Do you mean graphic novels or?
No, this is something between, but also it can be sort of an art book, but with a clear plot, and because this is like my family history, very long, that started in. That's also was always important for me. How, what does that mean being animal? What does it mean being human? Because I don't see much distinction between. So that for me, this is like a broad subject put into history of my family.
Okay.
So, but it's not something. When I do that, I don't give up painting. I do that parallelly to.
Because paintings can't have plots, really.
It has, but this is. I think that was the question sometimes I put myself. But this is not a linear plot.
Linear,
but
yeah.
yes, linear plot. But sometimes I think I can see almost the plot, not the narrative, but the way I look at the painting. I know it's. I can find.
So things are implied somehow.
Yes.
And maybe in that, because I was thinking about what you said earlier about, we talked about censorship a little bit. And I was thinking it's more the gaps between things. Between. There are things that you've painted, but there are things that are unpainted and that you haven't. It's the gaps. And
that's right.
And
that's right.
Things to come back to later, and maybe rather than a plot, it's a situation that all of these paintings have. The bad weather in that palm tree. What about all that writhing?
Yeah.
Is that the weather? Is that the...
That's exactly weather.
Yeah.
That was really the weather. And it's Rome. That it's evening in Rome, and it was really bad weather.
Yeah. And you have another one where it isn't, where it's...
That's on
the other wall. And what led you to Regent's Park?
That was, for me, these paintings are always. This is also the verge because Regent's Park because of art fair and I.
Because of Frieze.
Of Frieze,
oh, right.
yes, of course. And I took the snapshots of the fountains during the Frieze. So this is like so close.
And it's so much nicer out there than it is in that tent.
Anyway, so that's the. But yes. That's why it's the Regent's Park.
I read them as kind of almost votive and memorial, and
okay.
There is something about the frozen cascade of the water, and
yes, frozen. That was what was interesting for me. That was there were the drops of water. That's right. More in the other.
The
yes,
one over there,
yes. That
it?
was
Yeah.
that was for me important.
Yeah.
That was the subject.
How are we doing for time? Because I don't have a watch. I don't know where we are.
It would be a good time for questions now.
That's
if anyone,
great.
If
Good.
anyone has
okay.
any.
Recently, I went to see Andrei Rublevsky's show at David Swerner, and I was really interested in the way in which stylistically figurative drawings, paintings emerged, and it really put me in mind of your work, and I wondered if there was any connection that you might have thought of.
Of course, he was very important. He's very important for me, but not in a but it's not the way that I refer to directly, but because he was so also because he depicted the periods of the history that I'm very interested in. I don't know if it's the finished, if it's the history, or is it part of present. So he's very important for me, and also the way he was between realism and abstraction, and of course he was the very young man. That's interesting for me, of course. But I didn't see the show. But for me, when I was a student, that was sort of like revelance, like something. Revelation. That was sort of revelation. That there was Andrei Rublevsky, whose work was so different.
Well, to pursue the thread, I free associated with a completely different artist, since we're talking, in a sense, homage or a famage. maybe it was the macrame, maybe it was the stately figures, Abakonovich, who for whatever it's worth, under socialism, the telephone book had the first name on the cover. She was always the first person you saw when you went to a phone booth in big letters. And I don't know how it works for generation to generation, because she was such a different artist, really much closer to the old school monster artists, unlike Matisse, the armchair artist.
That's interesting with Abakanowicz, because she's been totally uncool for my generation. That was somebody who wouldn't never refer to. Of course, I wouldn't say that I may refer to Abakanowicz anyhow. But of course, this is not my discovery, but because I've seen her all the works in the context of in the other exhibitions around the world, I have to admit that this is so important and so brave and so also brutal in a positive way, her works. So I definitely refer to it with the works with the role.
Piece I saw of hers and saw her personally was in Los Angeles for the WAC show of radical women artists a number of years ago, and she did a macrame, huge, which was essentially a courbet à l'origine du monde, a huge set of what used to be called loin in biblical, the reproductive.
I think we know what it is, yeah.
No,
right.
I don't know. You never know these days. You never know. She was very, very bold. I mean, to a fault sometimes. Yeah. And then personally, of course, went over the edge.
When because you asked me about Abakanowicz, but this is also, that's what I find positives in aging, that you get more tolerant. I have to admit that I'm more tolerant for something that I wouldn't believe that I can get.
Is that because of where it began in your consciousness, when you were young, and because she seemed to stand for one thing? And
yes, but it was so uncool. You know, this ugly, huge, or what does that say about my life? So that was and it would be really the shame to admit that you're a fan of Abakanowicz when you were, I don't know, 20-something.
it's good to have a guilty secret, though, a guilty pleasure, isn't it?
Yes, but I wasn't a fan. I became tolerant, and I like her.
So what's your guilty pleasure now?
Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden.
Right.
No. I was fun, and it's not a guilty pleasure. No, I don't know.
We'll let you think about that. Another question, please, if someone has. Don't be shy. Shall I just one more thing? Because I sometimes get the feeling when I've, go through some of these lovely books about, the Fiden book, or what I think is a very beautiful little catalogue from the Douglas Hyde Gallery and other things. I always think that this painter is a kind of an invention, that he's a character, that you've invented this artist in a way, that because you said painting, there's a certain awkwardness in the invention, and there's as if you've fought to be able to paint in a way which makes, when I look at your work, it feels unfamiliar, which is a fantastic quality. I mean, I say that as a really positive thing. even when you're approaching Matisse and that in the music, that gawping oval of a black, awful mouth, you know. But it's as if that this painter is an invented, as if you're a novelist and you've entered a character almost.
I don't know. I
don't know how else to.
Of course, invention is something that I would love to be original, not to compare it to Luc Tuymans anymore. That I struggled for such a long time. But honestly, at that stage, I'm not that much for that. Of course, I want to. What is crucial for me? I would hate to bore myself with my painting, with my work. So sometimes I have doubts if I'm not repeating myself, if I'm not chasing the tail, if it's not enough. But I still like it, and I think this is the.
I think for me it's the missteps. You misstep us, which keeps it really exciting and really. I have to kind of recalibrate my idea of you as an artist very often, that it doesn't stay the same. Unlike Luc, for example, but we won't go there now. So when I first saw the Matisse paintings, I thought, whoa, how very dare you? You know, it's a dangerous thing to do in lots of ways. Because it's not just a simulation, you know.
Yes, but on the other hand, it's not such a big deal to make mistakes or to make mistakes in the art field. What's the consequences of it? Not much. I mean, you can paint difficult, awkward paintings. Eventually, you don't show them. But this is the perfect platform to make mistakes, to do, to be. Not to be consequent.
But also to push it so it becomes something, so it's no longer a mistake. And I meant more to destabilize what we think your work is like, and to kind of push it.
Oh, this is what I like, actually.
That's what I like
Destabilizing.
too. Yeah.
Yes, but I also destabilize myself.
Let's all be destabilized. One more question.
Yeah, hello. Just a quick question. Do you think you're rewriting history?
No, not at all. No, I don't have any ambitions with, at least not that ambitions with my work.
The reason I ask is because I looked you up on, I Googled you last night, and I saw that you received some kind of commendation from the Polish government, some award or something, I think it was. And I was curious because I've seen your work today, and I was just wondering whether, without judgment, your government would use your artwork to represent history in a certain way.
Sorry, I don't understand.
The question I'm asking is, would you be happy for your artwork to be interpreted in a political sense for the future? It's a difficult question, yeah, I know.
I don't know how to.
In the slightly earlier iteration of the question, I think the acoustics are not really helping. Was asking whether your work, how would you feel if your work was used, or whether it could be seen as supportive in some way of Polish official culture? Would that be a?
Yeah, I guess so. Or
supportive.
Well, I don't really want to give an opinion because it's not fair to do that because I haven't really thought it through. But what I did notice was that you did receive, on the internet, it said you received a some a recognition for your contribution towards the arts in Poland. And so my question was, would you be, not would you, but would your work be used in the future to interpret history in a certain way? Because you have
history,
got
but,
yeah.
but you mean history itself or history of art?
Well, I mean, I've just seen the show, obviously, for the first time today, and I saw that you've got the references towards nuclear war with your Liechtenstein and the other chap, Teller, I think it is. So I can see that there's a logical line running through your work. I can see that. The way I interpret it is that it has references which, if they put all your paintings together, could be interpreted as an interpretation of a period of history.
Yes, I don't mind. Of course, that now it's very difficult. Now it's as you may know, that's terrible situation, political situation in Poland, and of course fortunately the government, they don't have many people from that field, from culture field, to work with, to cooperate with. So of course it depends, but it's rather the other way around. That I use some parts of the history that are not easily acknowledged. I try to learn about them. I use them for my work. So rather this way, I use it. But if I would protest if somebody would like if paintings of mine would appear in the book that is developed by Polish government or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Sorry about that. It was just my own personal question. That's all. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for your really interesting questions, but mostly, thank you, Wilhelm. Thank you very much.